Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football presented by BKCW. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every day by Jerry Hamilton, and today we're joined by special guest Jeff Howe, filling in for Bobby Burton. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Folks, be sure to tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, get your questions in. We'll get to all of those here, and well, maybe not all, but a lot of them here in just a little bit. We got a ton to talk about this morning, guys, and we're going to start with the first player availability that happened yesterday, which also happened to be the first time we really got to see Arch at the mic.
Well, first off, Bobby's on an airplane this morning, so he's okay. He'd been under the weather a little bit this week. He's on an airplane this morning. But yeah, I mean, look, I think that, Jeff, the biggest thing that came out of yesterday was Arch is going to send Kurt Bowles some Viore. He's going to get him a little drip.
Get him a little drip, yeah. That was hilarious, and it wasn't like Jerry. You know the press conferences where it was like pander laughing at the subject. Yeah. No, like Arch is quick witted and sharp, and it was good. Hey, before we go any further, I want to thank one of our great OTF sponsors, the 40 Acres Collection. People were complaining that I don't wear enough collared shirts, Jerry, and I like the long sleeve dry fit. So 40 Acres Collection took care of me. Got the collared shirt,
I like it,
but it's a long sleeve dry fit, so I got the best of both worlds. Yeah, Arch was awesome, and I thought Trey Wisner, unprompted, and we'll get to this, but unprompted when he was asked about the freshman, he and Sark both, and Jerry, I know you'll like this. He and Sark both spoke really highly of James Simon. Yeah. They both spoke really highly of Nick Brooks, and a lot of the young receivers got mentioned. So there's a lot to be excited about with this freshman class, man. That I know we said this for the last few classes, but the returns on this freshman class, Jerry, they've surpassed my expectations. That's saying a lot for the number one class in the country. I didn't expect as many guys to come in and compete for two deep spots as we've seen so far.
Yeah, no doubt. Look, I think you see more of that because there's 21, 22 of the guys are early enrollees. The only ones that aren't are Nick Townsend, who was at practice a couple weekends ago, and the Coleman twins out of Cedar Hill, the offensive linemen, Jordan and Devin. So when you sign a number one class and 85% of those guys are early enrollees, I think you're going to see a few of them make a push. But Nick Brooks is well ahead of schedule. James Simon is just not, and I'm not sitting here patting myself on the back. That's just not a surprise to me, because we've had John Simon on this show multiple times, his father, who's a longtime college coach, running backs coach, offensive coordinator, wide receiver, is a really good running back, slot hybrid player himself at La Tech and briefly in the league. And we've talked about James Simon's going to come into college well ahead of the game. He's going to be advanced in his understanding of the position. His dad probably looked at the playbook and helped him a lot with the scheme early on, the understanding of that even last season. He's going to be advanced in pass pro because his father's a coach. He's going to be advanced in route running and recognition. But then it gets to the other part is your vision. And how quickly do you adjust to those holes pinching, especially on the backside? Your backside peripheral, man, that's a lot different at the college level. But we talk about all the time the young running backs at the end. The thing that having a father that was a college coach, a really good player, is, we talk about the tough thing for running backs sometimes going from high school to college is their eyes stay down on contact too long before they get their head back up and see where the second defender is coming from. Those things with a kid like James Simon, I think he's going to be advanced in that regard because of his father coaching him. But it's a really talented class. I thought Arch brings some funny to it, right? He's going to have his very measured, quick 12-word answers and move on to the next question. That's going to be how 90% of it is with him. But I know we've got some clips coming up, Blake. But he also mentioned some guys that have impressed him so far this year. And this spring, he talked about this quarterback room a little bit too.
Yeah, definitely. And that's I don't think I got him talking about all the players that he discussed yesterday, guys, but I put together a little montage here, about 45 seconds of Arch talking about various players, and I'm going to play that for you now.
Yeah, it's been good getting these young guys up to speed. I've been really impressed with Parker, and Dalen McCutcheon's been really good. He's coming along well. He's getting the hang of things. Yeah, it's good. KJ and Trey are both really good players. Trey can make every throw on the field, and KJ can make some serious plays with his feet and his arms. So we got a good room. Yeah, I've been really impressed with Spencer. he's a really hard worker. He's been stepping up a lot, so really proud of him and the rest of the room. Yeah,
So-
been really impressed with Cole. You know, Cole started as a freshman at guard, so he has playing experience, and he's been good at center. Yeah, we would throw him a winner. I'd have him come snap when we're throwing receivers. So him and DJ brings a lot of energy, and he's just good for the locker room. So I'm excited to have those two blocking for me.
Little technical difficulty there at the end, but
Hey, Jeff,
yeah.
Jeff, what were your other takeaways from Arch being there yesterday? What he had to say?
So I asked the Cole Hudson question and
Yeah.
DJ Campbell. So that was my question. CJ got a couple in there too. One thing that I like, Jerry, and I think this is, I've been on this train of thought that Sark has to do everything in his power to maximize this 2-year window he's got with Arch. What we assume is a 2-year window, and in 25 and 26.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I didn't see coming, when he brought in Neil Brown as a special assistant, I assumed, and look, it's probably going to be some of that tweaking the run game, doing some things that need to be done X's and O's wise. But I love the fact that Arch said when he and Neil Brown talk, they don't talk X's and O's at all. It's Neil Brown talking to him about being a good leader, being a good teammate, making sure you're around the guys, making sure you're taking guys out to eat, that you're relatable to guys, and just reinforcing some of that stuff. So I like the fact, Jerry, that Arch is perceptive. He's not closed off. We've seen plenty of guys of his ilk that, at 19, 20 years old, they know everything and are going to shut out everybody, and hey, they've got it figured out. Arch Manning's not one of those guys, and he's absorbed a lot from Quinn Ewers, and I think a lot of that was understanding what it's like to be the quarterback in Texas. Arch has been primed to be the man wherever he was going to go for forever, but I think understanding the dynamics at Texas with Quinn helped him. I just like the fact, Jerry, that he's willing to take as many opinions as possible and filter them out from people close to him.
I've said this. I think I've mentioned this before about Arch, and I stand by this. And it's crazy. It's something that I heard Art Briles say at a satellite camp years ago, which I really agreed with what he said. I was just kind of listening to a conversation with him and some coaches talking about quarterbacks, and Arch mentioned in there. Somebody asked him, it's been tough, right? Well, how'd you handle it? Well, I wasn't a starter on my basketball team. I was a 6th or 7th man. Okay, so those are like hidden, really true comments that have meaning to me because of that one prior conversation. Like Art Briles at a camp was talking about Jarrett Stidham and that he liked that he wasn't a starter on his high school basketball team. So he said he had to be a player on a team, not in a leadership role, and had to learn how to not be the best player on Friday night, but be a teammate and a good player and part of a team on Tuesday and Friday nights in basketball. And I think it's such a hidden comment, but it's a strong comment. That's how guys learn. You can't always be the best, right? If you're always the best, I saw Vince Young at Madison playing basketball. Same thing. He was really good. But I mean, the night I was there, he wasn't the best player on the court, right? So you learn from those things. And I think that what Arch said, I 100% agree with what he said, because I know what he was getting at. Being the 6th, 7th man, not being a starter on a team, having to be that teammate, that helped his leadership, right? Yeah. And then it helped him have some patience as well. And it's hard to sit for 2 years when you're a 5-star and you're ranked number 1 or 2 or 3 in the country, whatever it ended up being for him, depending on the various recruiting services. But those are lessons that you learn. And if you take those lessons and apply them, they can really help you if you look at it the right way. And obviously he has all the right people around him to look at it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Up next, fellas, we got Trey Wisner here. And again, my apologies on the audio. The feed wasn't the best. I did try to turn this up a little.
By the way, Christine Anderson in the chat with one of the funniest things. She said Arch was muted.
Yeah, at least it wasn't me. All right, here we go with Trey Wisner, also talking various players.
Definitely James Simon, considering he's a younger freshman, early enrollee. Most of the time, early enrollees don't get it that as fast as he is right now. especially now that we ain't got as many vets. Considering that. And then also I'm gonna say Christian Clark, for him not to be able to play for a year from an Achilles. He's came back in attack mode. He's not playing timid, so I definitely say them too. He's definitely got a bunch done in the weight room, because he knows that I won't say behind, but he's definitely missed a bunch of time. So he know he got to put in more work just to come back full effect. Definitely I'm gonna say NATO and Baker, for them two to not get as many snaps last year as some of the other guys. They definitely came into this spring with a chip on their shoulder also. So from up front, they definitely showed the most improvement to me. Definitely, Arch from the snaps he had last year, he just showed his dominance and the leadership that he had in him already. So for him to be able to come back this year and be the starting quarterback and take on that role head first and just show the guys like I'm with y'all as long as y'all with me is definitely something that we're looking forward to.
And there you go.
Oh,
Muted, Jerry.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's probably the first and the last time that Trey Wisner gets to refer to Parker Livingstone by white chocolate in a press conference. So, unless CJ made a good point yesterday, unless Arch picks it up and runs with it, that's probably that one probably gets put on the shelf.
Yeah, look, I think Trey Wisner also mentioned, I believe Nick Brooks, right? Yeah. Jeff, you said that. So James Simon's getting some mention. Christian Clark, we talked about this on the show as well. Whenever a player bounces back from injury quickly, right? And some injuries take longer, but you hear Achilles and you think, oh, this guy's automatically a year away. And for some guys, it can be or longer. The fact that you not only get back quicker, the way you attack it, your teammates notice. They notice every day what you're doing if they're observant themselves, especially the guys in your room. But then when you come back and there is no hesitation, and you just come back and you're like throwing caution to the wind and planting that foot and cutting downhill with explosiveness and without hesitation, without fear of injury again, that kind of commands and gets respect from your teammates. And so what Christian Clark has done for me is, as an athlete, he just commanded and got this respect of all his teammates that watched what he went through. Now, that doesn't mean Cedric Baxter's not. It's a different injury. Cedric Baxter's a longer recovery with his knee injury. But if you just look at Christian Clark and the way he's bounced back, because those guys, what's the injury? There's a couple injuries you never want to hear you have. And Achilles is one of those. Yeah. Right? It just is, especially as you get older. Dang, then you can't walk for months. But those are the scary injuries. Those are the scary word injuries, right? Outside of a neck, right, with football, which nobody even wants to talk about. But the fact that he's come back and attacked it the way he has, that gets a lot of respect from your teammates and your coaching staff. So good on Christian Clark for that. A very talented player. You mentioned earlier the freshman class, Nick Brooks. Look, we asked Tony Hills on a Hump Day with Hills Wednesday, and I think this can't be talked about enough. If you come in and this I think if we remember this spring might tell us in 2 or 3 years why Nick Brooks is really, really good, as long as he stays injury-free like all these guys. You come in and you're number 2 left tackle, but then you also take some right tackle reps. That's totally different stance, totally different peripheral. So the fact that he's come in January and in late March and April is repping at both of those spots, a little more left tackle, obviously, says a lot about, one, his study habits, what he's done work-wise, because coaches aren't doing that unless they say this guy's put in the work and they feel like they can trust putting more on his plate and that he's receptive to it. As well. So I think everything we're hearing about Nick Brooks for the last, we started talking about it with Sark and the players of late is I think it's going to be pretty telling for his future. I really do. Somebody's asking where I'm at this morning. I was in Dallas last night. I'm currently in a hotel in Waco, headed to Austin after this show. I literally just stopped here last night. And I'm headed to Austin for the big recruiting weekend. As soon as this show's over, I'm heading down south to get to Austin. Somebody asked where Bobby is. Bobby's on a plane. He apologized. He's on a plane this morning. So it was something out of his control.
That's right. And we're going to talk about that big recruiting weekend here in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you all about our sponsor today, BKCW. Did your business have a frustrating insurance or employee benefits renewal? Most likely you didn't hear from your agent all year, and then right before it was time to renew, your agent delivered the bad news of a rate increase. When this happens, the agent is providing no value, and you're stuck in what we call the insurance trap. BKCW takes you out of the insurance trap by providing you with actual risk management consulting, not just price quoting. Operating out of their headquarters in Austin, Texas, and owned by a UT graduate, BKCW uses a 5-step process to identify your business's weak spots, design a plan, execute it, and monitor your situation throughout the year so you can lower your insurance costs and effectively manage your company's risk. BKCW has already helped some of the most well-known construction companies, restaurant groups, breweries, and nonprofits in Central Texas escape the insurance trap. Just go to bkcw.com or send an email, info@bkcw.com, to get started with a free risk assessment or claims audit and escape the insurance trap. And we want to thank BKCW for sponsoring each and every Friday right here on Coffee and Football. And Jerry, you said it, big recruiting weekend. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to play Xavier Griffin's huddle, I believe. This is the 5-star linebacker from Gainesville, Georgia, who's a USC commitment. Hey, aren't they all early? But who will they actually sign in December? We'll see. Don't go 8-5. But Xavier Griffin, one of the better players and the prospects in the country, 6'4", about 210. Look at the bend, how quick he is off the edge there. This is a guy that Johnny Nansen went to see in January. Kenny Baker, a lot of connections in the Atlanta area. Part of this recruitment, oh boy, that's closing speed right there. Frame to grow. One of the better prospects in the country. He is making his first unofficial visit to Texas this weekend. And this is one of those, just Texas putting in effort is what this is in recruiting. He has one official visit set, and that is USC June 20th this weekend. This is an unofficial visit, I think, and then we'll see where it goes from here. If Texas can get him on campus for an official visit, watch him walk this guy down. I mean, they got kick and run now. But this is, again, this is his first unofficial visit to Texas. This is a first unofficial visit weekend for a lot of guys. Now, I'll say this before I get to those guys. Diabell back on campus this weekend. Another good sign for Texas. I gotta quit watching the video because this guy's smoking everybody. All right, then KJ Edwards and John Turntine are back. They've been on campus multiple times, right? So, but John Turntine's in Friday, Saturday. KJ Edwards is in. But then you get to a number of guys who have not made. This is their first unofficial visit to Texas, and this is where things get really fun for me in the recruiting process, because this is when Texas started to make moves with guys like Jamie French, Myron Charles, Josiah Sharma, Zealous Hicks, and Grayson Littleton were on campus. It wasn't publicized highly. Hicks was a 27 at the time. They both ended up in the class. But Hezzy Kent from Brunswick, Georgia, the big 285-pound tight end hybrid athlete, he's scheduled to be on campus. Dre Quinn, a really good edge pass rusher from the greater Atlanta area, he's on campus this weekend for the first time. You have the corner Samari Matthews from Huff High in Cornelius, North Carolina, Mark Orfe's first offer. He's on campus for the first time. You got a number of defensive linemen, interior D linemen. You have Damari Simmon, who I absolutely love. We played the video before. He's out of St. Augustine High in Richland, New Jersey. His first unofficial visit to Texas. Corey Wells, the over-the-ball player from Petal, Mississippi, same. James Johnson out of Miami Northwestern, wasn't North Fort Myers, one of the better D linemen in the country. I think Texas has a real uphill battle there. But they had a real uphill battle with some other guys when they stepped foot on campus at this time a year ago. And they ended up signing those guys. So we'll see. I think James Johnson's a real long shot, though, if we're being real. Bryce Perry Wright from Buford back on campus again. So there are a lot of guys from Georgia on campus this weekend. They're all highly ranked prospects. There's a list on ontexasfootball.com, visitors list I updated and put out this morning. Then one other one, Jamarian Carlton, the edge from Temple, who's obviously he's been on campus a few times. He is scheduled to be on campus Saturday as well. So big visit weekend for Texas, a number of 2027s. I expect this to go to up to 25 combined 5-star and 4-star prospects on campus this weekend. And myself, CJ, Jeff, we got you covered. And before anybody asked a question, no, Bobby's not at the Masters. Before anybody asked a question about John Turntine and his weight, he's 275.
Thank you for that, Jerry. That's good. That's good to clarify that. Are you sure he's not like 240 or 245 or whatever?
I mean, I don't even know what to say at this point.
I know. I like getting you right up. And I want to address Eyes on Texas. Asked a really good question regarding Xavier Griffin. That comes off the edge a lot. Is this prospect a true backer, or is he looking to build up to be an edge? Here's one of the things, and this goes back, Jerry, to Sark's press conference on Tuesday. You look at what they're doing with Trey Moore. And Trey Moore now, if you look at the roster, his position, he's listed as a linebacker now. He's no longer listed as an edge. I think with what we know Anthony Hill can do, with what we believe Brad Spence can do, with what they're training Trey Moore to do, and what eventually they'll truly cut Colin Simmons loose and let him do, I think that's going to be the prototype, not necessarily for edge, but for an outside linebacker in this defense. In other words, he can be a guy that he can be a 2-point stance defensive end. You can walk him out. He can cover guys in the slot. He can blitz. He can rush the passer as a true edge guy. I think they want, some 6'3", 6'4", 230, 240-ish kind of hybrid guys that you don't have to take off the field and that you can mix and match. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, Jerry, but it almost feels like with the linebacker group they've got this year, and you throw Trey Moore into that too, it almost feels like how you would think of a defensive interior D-line rotation. In other words, Anthony Hill's going to gobble up the snaps in that group, but with the rest of the guys, you can mix and match, and all those guys are really good pass rushers. You don't know where it's coming from, who's going to be on the field, and it makes it tough for a team to account for a guy like Colin Simmons, or we're going to double Anthony Hill. Okay, great. You're going to leave Trey Moore blocked one-on-one. You're going to leave Brad Spence one-on-one with a tight end. Like it really just creates a lot of problems. So you're creating – Rod and I talked a little bit about this on Football Theory this week. Basically, PK's got the flexibility now where you can create mismatches. You're almost coaching defense and calling defense like an offensive coordinator would call offense. Whereas, okay, I want to get my back in space. I want to get the ball to this guy, whatever. You're just doing that on defense now because you got the personnel to do it.
Yeah. No. If you're perfect player for college football at linebacker, and they're hard to find. The guy's a great player is Jalen Walker. That was at Georgia.
Yeah.
Because he's a true back. Somebody asked, is this guy a true middle backer? Jalen Walker he was a true middle backer in terms of he can make all the calls, he can make the reads, but he's also best as just off the edge as a pass rusher. That's like the perfect guy for college football for me. Mm-hmm. And they're hard to find. Maybe Xavier Griffin's the 6'3.5", current 215-pound version of that. We'll see over time. Jalen Walker's dad was also a college football coach, small college football coach. So he kind of grew up like James Simon did with that father being a college coach, really helping his escalate his development as a player. But that, to me, to your point, Jeff, that's the perfect guy in college football for me, is the guy that you can play inside, and then you can go play him outside on passing downs. He can get after the quarterback, but he can also sit there and call your defense on first and second down too. Those are the guys that if you can find one of those guys and have one of those guys on your team, I think it makes you a much, much better defense, and it maximizes your pass rush ability as well. So somebody asked here, how good is KJ Edwards? Is he an NFL running back good? I'll say this. We had Scott Surratt, the legend, Carthage head coach, on. And look, I've had discussions with Coach Surratt. And with KJ, a lot of it's going to depend on how his frame builds out. Keontae Ingram was a taller guy, but he thinks he's as good as any back he's had at Carthage. And Keontae Ingram's in the NFL. And KJ Edwards has the juice. He runs through contact. He plays through contact. I think he's got really good contact balance. I think he's going to be good out of the backfield, catching the football. He's a complete back, because Scott Surratt asks his backs to be complete backs at Carthage. I think KJ Edwards is a really, really talented running back. And so can he be? Yeah, he can. He can be if he can carry that 205, 210 pounds long term, which he should be able to on that frame.
Here's the thing I would ask Coach Surratt, Jerry, regarding Carthage running backs. Is he as good as Dwight Smith?
Because Dwight Smith was very talented, his first guy.
It maybe didn't pan out for a number of reasons, but on first watch, maybe one of the closest things I've seen to Ricky Williams since Ricky Williams. Like Dwight Smith was, like I said, just couldn't in a lot of ways just couldn't get out of his own way, but immensely talented kid. I think that might have been Scott Surratt's first state championship team.
It was. I think Dwight. Somebody in the chat will know. I'm getting older. I think Dwight Smith moved in from California, or maybe he lived there and moved back to Carthage or something.
You're right. Yeah,
he was gone for a while and moved back. So that was those were Scott Surratt's first state championships there. So a big recruiting weekend, obviously. I mean, I have it at least 20 combined 5-star and 4-star prospects in 26 and 27. I think that number will get up to 25 this weekend. So it's the first real big weekend on the 40 in recruiting this spring. And then I think the April 26th weekend is going to be as well. By the way, not coming in this weekend, but Caden Finley from Aledo will be in next weekend. Not as many kids will be in next weekend, but Caden Finley scheduled to be at Texas next weekend on the 19th.
Hey,
we got a super chat here that I want to read, fellas, from Nick. Thank you, Nick. He says, "Good morning, fellas. Today is my son Jackson's birthday. He's the big 13. I'm surprising him with a trip to Austin for Fan Appreciation Day. Any updates for what's going on for that day? Hook 'em. First off, Nick, happy birthday to your son Jackson. That's awesome. Teenager.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy birthday. Jeff, I haven't heard the details yet of that 26th day. I mean, obviously there's going to be big autograph session, time with players, photo ops, but I haven't heard the specifics yet for that date.
Drew Martin's got that thing under lock and key right now, so they're being pretty secretive with it. Like I said, I've heard the same things you have, Jerry, just kind of the general gist of it. But as far as specifics, no, they're not going to release it until Drew Martin and that marketing team are darn good and ready to release it.
Eyes on Texas asked the running back at DeSoto who ran at least 10.6. He is I'm sure Texas will be in on him on some level. Yes. Myron Johnson. He has a hyphen in there. One of the better prospects in America in 2027. So yeah, I expect Texas will be in on him. And yes, he is kind of one of those freaky athlete guys for sure.
All right, we got a lot more to talk about this morning, fellas. And we haven't looked at mock drafts in a while, Jerry. And so Mel Kiper actually came out with a new one. You know, he's
the chat's favorite guy.
Mel Kiper is very loved on Coffee and Football by the fan base for sure. But he came out with a new 2-round mock draft. And so I'm going to show y'all who the Texas picks are. So he has Miami 13 overall taking Jahdae Barron in the first round, followed by Matthew Golden taken by the Cardinals at 16 overall, which we've seen mock quite a bit. He did say that Golden could go to the Cowboys at 12. So that was a note. And then he has Kelvin Banks going to the Seahawks at 18. And then in the second round, only one Longhorn taken, according to Kiper. Although we'll talk about this here in a second. That may change. Isaiah Bond, 57 overall, to the Panthers.
So I guess we got to address that. Obviously,
before we get to the bad, Jerry, can I get to the good real quick?
Yeah. Let's start with the good.
I've seen multiple multi-round mocks that have Alfred Collins going in the second round, and I think there's going to be a run on defensive linemen at some point in this draft, probably early in the second round, where somebody that might have thought they could get Alfred. This is the one thing that day 2 of the draft, things can get kind of wonky. You take a guy like Alfred Collins, there may be a team saying, "Hey, we'll get him in the third round," but that team with their second round pick, if there's that run on defensive lineman, might say, we need to come out of this draft with a defensive lineman, and he's not going to be there by the time we pick in the third round. So let's use our 2 on him and then come back in the third round and get that receiver, corner, or whatever else it is we need. So I think Alfred Collins, at the very least, is going in the second round of this draft.
Yeah, look, I think Texas will have we'll have to get in the bond. We don't know. Look, obviously nobody knows what's going on with that. I don't. But I could see Texas having 5 guys drafted in the first 2 rounds. That's kind of where I come out on this. Is Who that is, we'll see, because there's a lot of games played. Even the guys that cover the draft, I think there's, what teams tell these guys. There's some games being played behind the scenes, as there should be. I know some people may disagree with that, but man, I'm fine with that. With the teams, front offices telling people kind of one thing but thinking something else. I'm good with that. But look, I think there's going to be 5 guys drafted now. The Isaiah Bond thing, I don't know any details on that. Jeff, we don't know any details on that. That's going to have to be a legal system type of thing. And, but for Bonds, the timing of it, for his, no matter what ends up coming out of the allegations, right? His second round is done. He was even he even got a couple of first round mocks, unless something of this flips on a dime here.
I mean, granted, what Lyle Collins was allegedly implicated in several years ago was, if there is something worse than this, it was worse. That knocked Lyle Collins out of the draft, because the problem was, until this gets cleared up, I don't know how you can have him on your board. I just don't. I mean, because look, it could be that nothing comes of this and charges are dismissed, and it was some kind of misunderstanding or whatever, or it could be the other way. But until you've got clarity, and for teams, you can't take that risk.
And guys, for those that are listening that can't see on the screen here, Isaiah Bond turned himself into Frisco police yesterday morning or the night before. You've heard both of those, for an outstanding warrant for a sexual assault, according to Frisco Police Department. And then Bond came out with a statement last night saying, regarding the accusation made against me, I would appreciate the time and opportunity to defend myself and prove the claims made patently false. I am in full cooperation with the authorities and will remain a willing and active participant in the investigation. Unfortunately, claims like this prove to be harmful to all involved, absent full review. I kindly request that all reserve judgment until the authorities provide a complete report based on truth and evidence. Humbly, Isaiah Bonds.
Yeah, like I said, we don't know how this is going to play out but from a timing perspective for him, it can't be worse. I mean, it can't be worse for him. Look, Burn Orange said, it's a he said, she said, due process people, 100% true. Mm-hmm. For the NFL draft, it's awful for him. That's just the reality of it, unless something clears up like really quickly. It's going to be very detrimental to his NFL draft. Right? Let's bring this up real quick, because this is very interesting. Reese Brewer asked a good question. Thoughts on Nico at Tennessee, and talk about money right before the transfer portal. I don't know if you've seen this, guys, but I was actually sitting at a AAU basketball game last night and was talking with somebody about this. And I'll get to, we're going to do some basketball stuff in a second. I went and watched Austin Gooseby and some of the guys Texas recently offered in 2026 last night up in Dallas. That to me screams of not a guy that wants to go into the portal, but a guy that's trying to get one more big front-loaded deal before this house settlement. That's what that screams to me. And we'll see. Maybe he jumps in the portal, and maybe I'm wrong. But the timing of this, right before the portal opens, right before the house settlement in a couple of weeks. I know on the basketball side of recruiting in the portal right now, it's trying to get the front-end loaded deals done before the house settlement agreement is a big part of this. Even hell, there's been signing bonuses with some of these kids in the portal in college basketball right now, and significant signing bonuses. I think that's kind of my inclination is that's where we're going with this, but we'll see. I mean, it's up to Tennessee. It's really up to Tennessee. I don't think they want to start over at the quarterback spot, but it screams of me trying to get a new deal and probably a front-loaded deal before this house settlement goes through, because everybody knows that it's definitely going to change the game. So it doesn't change the game for the Arch Mannings of the world, but it's going to change the game for a lot of guys. And so they want front-loaded deals right now.
Somebody mentioned, I I apologize who it was. I got to scroll up to see who it was. Casey mentioned, said Xavier Worthy and Jadae Barron did this each of the last 2 years. It's not uncommon. So, well, their last few years of their time. Yeah, it's not uncommon for you to kind of, for lack of a better term, renegotiate your deal. The difference is, Jerry, as you put it, it's the position he plays. And look, you can say what you want about Nico as a quarterback. If you ask Josh Heupel, what's the alternative?
Starting quarterback on a playoff team.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's kind of the conversation as a fan of the Dallas Football Cowboys, a long-suffering fan at this point. It's the same conversation I have, Jerry, all the time with people about Dak Prescott. Well, Dak sucks. Get rid of him. Okay. What are you going to do? You're not going to sign a franchise guy in free agency. Do you think this ownership has a stomach to get you a good enough draft pick? And then it's got to be the right draft, and you got to have the right system in place, the right foundation in place for that quarterback to work. So basically, you're going to do that. You'd nuke your franchise and start over. Now, it's not that big of a deal in college football because of the portal and recruiting and everything else. But you're going to take a team like Tennessee that probably feels like they're really close and put them at an incredible disadvantage just because somebody didn't want to pay the bill. It sucks for the people that are having to pay up, but like I said, what's the alternative? It's not good.
Yeah, no, that's true. So there's the Ohio State rumors with Nico that's out there, and we'll see. Look, if he jumps in the portal, he obviously I think is going to know where he's going there. Yeah. But I think I still maintain, and I might be wrong. I still maintain this is this house settlement has guys trying to get a lot of front loaded deal right now if they can get it done, and I think that's where a lot of this stuff is at right now. Somebody mentioned there was a question up here I wanted to get to. Casey, look, something to follow. I swear, if the house settlement ushers in the bag game again, I'll be so mad. I call it car house, and I definitely think it's coming back after a house settlement. I'm not saying it's going to be rampant, but it's coming back. It's coming back.
All right, well, we are going to talk some basketball recruiting here in just a moment, like you said, Jerry. But first, I need you to tell everyone out there about one of our newest sponsors in Pesty.
Yeah, man, you got insects, bugs crawling around the backyard, coming into your house. When it rains and the ants get in the house when it rains too much. Tired of dealing with bugs, ants, insects of any kind around the house? Nobody likes it. But using a professional service can often be more expensive than you want. That's why there's Pesty, an affordable, pet-friendly self-service solution. Other pest control companies charge over $800 a year, but with Pesty, you can get started at just $35 per treatment with a customized plan based on your location, bugs, and your climate. Very important there. Pesty is easy to use. Everything you need comes in one simple package that includes a sprayer, mixing bag, gloves, very important, and with instructions you can complete in a short period of time. Pesty gets rid of over 100 types of bugs, from spiders to ants to roaches to red raiders in Lubbock. You can get rid of all of it. Pesty is kid and pet friendly. The pesticides they ship are fully registered and have been used in hospitals and schools all over the country. Pesty offers 100% bug-free or red raider-free guarantee or your money back. If the bugs don't go away, they'll give you a free refund. Nobody likes being bugged, especially by, bugs. And when they do show up, you want them gone fast. Protect your home from bugs and red raiders with Pesty. Go to pesty.com/OTF for an extra 10% off your order. That's pesty.com/OTF for an extra 10% off your order. Get rid of those bugs and red raiders.
And I'm also going to let everyone out there know about Timeline's MitoPure. If you work out, it's a supplement that you're going to want to add to your daily regimen because it supports your health at the foundation by encouraging cellular renewal. Even if you don't work out, you need to add MitoPure to your daily routine. It's a precise dose of the rare postbiotic urolithin A. It works by promoting an essential cellular cleanup process that clears out your cell's battery packs. There's a lot of products out there that claim to make you stronger or they claim to pack on muscle, but Timeline's MitoPure is shown to deliver double-digit increases in muscle strength and endurance without a change in exercise. They don't just claim it, they deliver on it. And I can tell you that I personally love it because I recover much more quickly from my workouts. I can tell a tremendous difference with it. I also have more energy because of it, which is obviously an added bonus in my book. MitoPure is the research-backed innovation that unlocks your fullest potential. Awaken the strength, power, and resilience already in you with the first and only supplement clinically proven to rejuvenate health at the cellular level. And right now, Timeline is offering 10% off your order of MitoPure. Just go to timeline.com/ontexas. That's Timeline, TIMELINE.com/ontexas, and take advantage of that 10% off offer. Okay, well, we got some basketball stuff to talk about. I even got a baseball note that I just dropped over on OTF a moment ago while y'all were talking. We'll get to that too. But let's start with basketball, and let's start with men's basketball specifically.
Yeah, 3 official visitors this weekend from the portal. 2 of those guys are already committed. Matas, I don't know if you have the roster, Blake, you can bring up.
Yep, give me just a second.
My allergies are crushing me. We're battling through it, though. We're battling, but the pollen is all over my body, I feel like. All right, so this is the current Texas roster. Obviously, Matas center. Matas will be on campus for his official visit. Camden Hyde, the Purdue transfer, will be on campus for his official visit. Then Lucina Traore, the Xavier transfer, will be on campus for his visit, which we've said Texas leads big for Traore, guy that was a double-double machine at Long Beach State, transferred to Xavier, was really, really good at Xavier prior to a knee injury, right? A couple weeks prior to the start of the season, really hurt that Xavier team, probably kept them from being a Sweet 16 team. Really good player there. If Texas can get that done, which I like their chances, him and Matas give you a really good center combination. And Dalen Swain's that combo forward. Cam Hyde's that athletic 3-and-D guy that can play above the rim at the wing position. But Texas will have a really big roster. Obviously, Jamie Vincent, the young kid, him, Nick Cody. Which of those guys takes a big step will be key. Vincent can really shoot it. Cody's a face-up player. Maybe doesn't have as much range as Vincent, but we'll see which one of those guys makes a big jump. They're all starting their workouts at Texas right now, the guys that stayed in the program. But you can see the Texas fans have been clamoring for a bigger roster. Texas is going to have a really big roster. If they add a Traore, as I expect them to, that's another 6'10". That's 6'10", 245 with athletic ability. So Texas is going to have the biggest, longest limb roster when Texas fans walk into Moody that they've had in many, many years, if not ever. Now, what does that mean for the season? We'll see. Texas needs to get another combo guard, and I've got my eyes on the world on this one, not just the states. I've got my eyes on the world for this combo guard spot, and then there's a 13th spot. But I can say that Texas is going to be they're going to be patient and make sure they get it right here at the end. They feel good about the roster they have built right now. If you add Traore, I think they feel really good about the roster they have headed into year one because they've got some youth. They've got some guys, those young bigs, John Clark, he was actually working out with TJ Ford in Missouri City last night. He's coming back off the broken pinky finger. He's trained with TJ for years. So he's getting back in the groove, getting back in the basketball shape, beginning his skill work again. But look, Camden Hyde should be a multi-year player. The question will be is Dalen Swain. Dalen Swain, I think, can be a first-round pick. I think he's really, really good. And if he makes a similar jump from freshman to sophomore to junior, he'll only be at Texas 1 year because he has familiarity with his system. If he improves his perimeter game, he'll go on and have a chance to be a first-round pick. He's just too skilled and sees the game too well, too versatile as a switch defender at 6'8". And he was the guy that Miller and them, above all else, thought they had to have out of the portal. That's why they brought him in first. That's why they got him committed first. That tells you what Sean Miller and that staff, those staff that came with him from Xavier, those staff members think about Dalen Swain, and he is getting some first-round mocks. But this Texas team, they're 20 right now. Gary Parrish is way too early, top 25 for ESPN. One other I've seen. I think that's a Sean Miller effect. I think you're getting the Sean Miller coaching bump right now from this roster, along with people think he's building a good roster. This last combo guard, and again, I'm looking worldwide. If they get that one right, they have a chance to be really good in year one. I like to stay healthy like everybody else, but they put together a roster that can compete for sure.
First off, Jerry, I can't believe I didn't say this at the top, but since you're staying in Waco, be careful about drinking the water. There's something in the water there.
Is there? That's a Rob. That's what Rob Wright told us Scott Drew to go take $3.5 million from BYU.
That's
By the way, that may be the worst thing, unfortunate for Baylor, in the whole NIL era I've seen. For those that haven't seen this, Rob Wright, the point guard, I guess technically still at Baylor, but it's going to BYU. He's in the portal now. He had signed $1 million NIL deal with Baylor. And then BYU just comes in and said, oh well, that's 3.5 sound. Gone. After it paid back what he had already made, I'm out. Peace. After a lot of the guys in the portal had already gone to other schools. That's one of the roughest goes in the portal I've seen for I know people hate Baylor, Scott Drew, whatever, but if it happened to Texas, people would be like, what the hell? We hate this kid, right? But that is probably the roughest thing I've seen in the portal when you sign a deal and you're here. And so what does Baylor stop doing? So they stop recruiting. They stop thinking about that position in the portal. And then a lot of those, and then this week, I'm out, BYU 3. And I don't begrudge the kid because he's not a surefire NBA player. And $3.5 million is a hell of a lot of money for that guy in that position.
Yeah.
So it's a life changer. So I'm not mad at him. It's the problem with this structure right now that you can sign a NIL contract with one school and you're not bound to it. You just I'm done. I'll pay your money back and I'm out. 2 weeks later, 2 or 3 weeks later. That is one of the bigger, maybe the biggest issue I see in all this right now.
There's got to be, my hope is, Jerry, because the collective, the third party, is still going to be involved on some level. You just like to think that there's guardrails and where it's got to be tougher than that to get out of an NIL deal. It can't just be, well, here's the money back, I'm going to go. No, there's got to be something. If you're going to take it, there's got to be something binding you to it. But what I was going to say, if you were in Lubbock, I'd be worried about Raider rash for you. But it's just Waco, so just avoid the water if possible. This is, as Sean Miller builds this roster, Jerry, this is why I like him retaining Chris Ogden as the general manager, because, Augie got a really good look at, okay, this is what a season's like in the SEC. This is where we felt our roster was deficient, where we were going to go. So as you build this roster, you kind of know where to fill the holes. You got to have a physical front line to make it in this conference. There were just too many times, and I don't need to tell you the games because everybody can remember them. There were too many games where Texas was just out physicaled up front, and that can't happen. And I feel like you've got enough bodies now up front to where you're not just going to be physically outmatched when you step on the floor.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, look, the game at Florida last year was the big one in that regard, right? I mean, because Florida had multiple guys, and they weren't the big-bodied bully ball guys. They were just big, skilled guys, and they ran 4 of them through. Chinaloo he was that guy. He was a grinder. He'd grind on you in the paint. But Condon, no. The 7-footer from Marshall, not really. Huff, not really. They're more skilled. The big kid from Marshall could a little bit, but it wasn't the same as Chinaloo or like a Jawan Roberts or something like that.
Yeah.
Condon and Huff are really skilled. So what you have to have, like what I like what Sean Miller's done so far, and I do want to talk about the kids I saw last night because I think Austin Goosby's really, really talented. Really talented. And Dakari Spears pretty good too. Is Matas is that big paint guy, right? And if you play more 4 out, 1 in, ball movement, offense, Dalen Swain, you can play as a 4 in college basketball because he's got the height, length, and he's got switchability on defense. So I think he's building the versatility along with the size. Now, one of those young bigs needs to step up. Nick Cody, Jamie Vincent, or even John Clark as a freshman. But who steps up there to give that skilled bigger guy is going to be key because Matas, and if you add Traore, they're more of the paint guys. They're going to play 12 feet and in. So they need one of those young bigs to one of those skilled guys to really come through for them. Because I think Texas, unless they spend their 13th scholarship on a international big that's more of a skilled guy, that guy will probably need more time. That's why they bring him in later on the roster. But I like what Sean Miller. I have no doubt Sean Miller is going to build really talented rosters at Texas. I've seen it. He's got a good offensive system. He's adapted to the game. I think Texas basketball's in good hands. That means you're going to a Final Four. Nobody can predict that. But I think it was a really good hire, and I think he's going to put together really good rosters. I saw Austin Gooseby last night. I'd seen him before when he was younger. But I think Austin Gooseby, Texas probably leads for Austin. Alabama's going to offer him soon. Duke may offer him. Everybody's going to offer Austin. Really talented 6'5.5" combo guard, shoots it well, plays at a great pace, will play physical when he's inside 12 feet with you. But I think he's a 2-year college player, and I think he's tremendous. And I think one of the things that helped Sean Miller from a recruiting standpoint early on is the 26 class in Texas. And you're not going to have big high school classes like 5 guys. You may take 4 in one class. One of those would probably be an international player. But 2 of the guys they just re-offered this week are Austin Gooseby, Trevor Gooseby's younger brother, obviously, and Bo Ogden, Chris's son, who's a top 60 ranked player in the country, can really shoot it off the wing. So that's good for Sean Miller in year one, that you have some guys that there's some strong connections with. I watched Dakari Spear from the Colony last night, 6'4" guard. He can get any shot he wants. He's a really talented player. Alabama, a lot of other Kansas. Everybody's offered him. I think that's legitimate. Texas re-offered Davion Atkins, who plays at Faith Family in high school. Played with Southern Assault on the Adidas circuit last night. 6'8" rim runner. I'd like him with this game to be 6'9.5", 6'10". He's got to build an offensive game. He's got to be more than a rim runner. He's got to have a go-to move. I think his best basketball is way out in front of him. One younger kid last night that I want to mention. I got to say hello to Marcus Spears, obviously former LSU and NFL star D lineman. Daughter is a freshman volleyball player at Texas. She's having a great time at Texas, loves it at Texas. His son is a 6'8" sophomore, a lefty combo forward that's more of a power forward that's going to build out his game over time to be a combo forward. And I'll be surprised if Texas goes at him. He's ranked really highly. If Texas goes all in on him, I'll be surprised if Texas isn't in it because of the positive feedback the Spears has from the daughter's time at Texas right now.
Jerry, my big question on that is, can Bo shoot it as well as Chris did back in the day?
Better. Sorry, Chris.
He didn't waste no time.
No. Better. I think Chris would say the same thing. But Bo can shoot the basketball. He's a shot maker, a good athlete, more athletic than his dad. And I think his dad would say that. Augie's probably an inch taller. I think Augie's almost 6'7". Bo's closing on 6'6".
And Jerry, a couple of women's basketball recruiting notes. We posted an update the other day on ontexasfootball.com, but Texas hosting a top 10, 15 transfer this week. Can't give out the name yet, but they're also expected to host a few others next week. Going to be a big week for them, including FAU's Louisa Hose. I hope I'm saying Asbrink Hose, excuse me, along with Utah's Gianna Neepkins. Man, no easy names today. Are both 2 expected visitors next week, along with a couple of others that we have to hold off on now. But Vic, very busy in the portal at the moment.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, football portal opens next Wednesday, Jeff, guys. So it's a basketball portal coming to a close here. April 22nd, maybe the date there, which it closes. Doesn't mean guys and gals have to have a decision, but they have to be in the portal by 11:59 on that night. Then football portal opens on the 15th. It's a crazy time coming up because Texas will have unofficial visitors on campus from a high school standpoint here the next couple of weeks, kind of trickling through. And then, like I said, Caden Finley's next weekend. I think Luke Waffle, the edge out of the Hun School in Princeton, no SAT requirement needed here, or we don't even need to see your transcript. Just come on down. He's going to be on campus, I think, Monday, Tuesday. Really, really good player, top 75 kid in the country. Then you have portal opening. Obviously, Texas is going after wideout. They're going after tight end. They're going after a disruptive interior D lineman. We'll see what else. We don't think that'll be the only 3 spots. We'll see what else Texas makes a move on. If they make a move on a kicker, we'll see. They make a move any other position. I think it's only 1 tight end. I think it's only 1 wideout. And I think it's 1 interior D lineman. So anybody asking for it, could there be multiple guys at those positions? I don't know if I see that. But so it's a busy time coming up for all of us talking about it and having fun in the chat with it, because we have basketball, men's and women's portal about to close, but visitors on campus, and then football opening. And we're starting to see some names jump in the portal. I think by April 16th, we're going to see some key names start to jump in the portal.
Two things on the football portal, Jerry. You and I both said the same thing. Outside of those three positions, which Sark has talked about those publicly, right? I don't think that's any secret that they need bodies there. They need quality bodies there. Any other position group where we see Texas going after somebody in the portal, that'll tell you how they feel about their young guys.
100%.
If they, in other words, like corner is one of those positions I've wondered about. If they don't pursue a corner, then that tells you Grayson Littleton, Cade Phillips, the younger guys on this roster, Kobe Black. That means they really like those guys. Yes. So they feel like they're good there. The other thing is the Mason Shipley kicker, the kicker from Texas State, entering the portal. That's really interesting because he's a really, really good kicker, quality kicker. And, Jerry, you talk about trying to get a front-loaded deal before the house settlement comes down. If you're the best kicker in free agency, so to speak, and you're a national title contending team that feels they're a kicker away, I'm not saying you can name your price, but you're going to set a new market for portal kickers.
You'll do better than most kickers have.
Exactly.
I'll say that. Yeah, no doubt. And so it'll be interesting to see, and I totally agree. We've talked about this, Jeff. If Texas does not go after a corner, if they don't go after now, could an edge guy pop up? I still think that's due to injury more than it is. Look, if David Bailey there's a reason that Brad Wesley gave him a Ford dealership, right? I mean, like, that guy's an elite difference maker player. But if there's a really good edge prospect that jumps in, that's still I think that's still possible, because maybe due to injury, if another guy jumps in the portal as much as anything, just because, Colton Vosick's been an often injured player. Zena had a little setback, missed a little time. So that would be the one for me. But I totally agree. If you don't go after a safety, if you don't go after a corner, that means you love your young talent. Yeah. That means you think that you have multiple guys who are really good young players. And that would be interesting at DB too, because that means Orfe came in and immediately said, I like this guy, I like this guy, and I like this guy. And he didn't recruit him, but he said, these guys can play. So they can play for me. They can play at Texas. They can play in this scheme at a high level. So that means if Texas doesn't look at a corner, that's a really good sign for your young guys, your Cade Phillipses, your Kobe Blacks, your Warren Roberson, your Santana Wilson at corner, I would say.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off a minute ago, Jerry, but running back's another one of those positions. Like with Christian Clark, I don't think any of us had that on our bingo cards for spring ball. Mm-hmm. Christian Clark making this emergence. Jarrett Gibson's got all kinds of competition for that number 2 spot right now. James Simon sounds like he's as much in that mix as a true freshman early enrollee can be. And you've still got CJ Baxter coming back at some point. So maybe all of a sudden running backs maybe not the pressing need that it might have been, that it looked like it could be when spring ball started.
There's no doubt. We referenced this many times, right, over the last couple months since the end of the season. The health of the running backs room, I think, will dictate. Now, that doesn't mean that something can't happen here. We're not saying for sure. But the health of the running back room, or lack thereof, now it's the health of the healthier running back room with Christian Clark looking good this spring. That changes your calculus and what you're thinking. And, by the way, no other guys have gone down with injury as well. So, if you look at it, Ricky Stewart was coming in, and he was built like Trey Wisner. He's a year away from being a guy talked about for me, like from a physical standpoint. The talented player, but he needs some time to put, like Rod said, put the armor on. James Simon's a little different. I figured he'd pick it up fast. So if you add that guy into the mix, and you have a healthy Christian Clark looking good, and you have Jarrett Gibson going into sophomore, and you have Trey Wisner, and then CJ Baxter will be back at some point early in the season, I don't know if you look at running back. And the problem, I think, in the portal at running back for Texas is you don't just want to look, Velton Gardner, that was an injury insurance policy last year, and he ended up getting injured. But I think the thing there is, if you take somebody out of the portal, I don't think you're trying to you wouldn't be taking a running back that's just a guy to be there, right? You have James Simon, who's looking good.
Yeah.
But the question is, Trey Wisner was a 1,000-yard rusher last year. And the guys know C.J. Baxter will be back. He was a freshman starter at times. It was an all-SEC second-team pick prior to his knee injury. And, whether Jarrett Gibson, how much he carries the football or not, he still put 350 yards in the books last year. So when a running back looks at the Texas situation, or they in the portal, if Texas wanted one, would that running back say, yeah, that's the spot for me? That's what I think the issue is. And I know people in the chat will say, well, Ohio State got Quinshon Judkins. Those are their two guys, right? There was no injured guy coming back. That's the big difference is you have an injured guy that was a starter as a freshman at times coming off injury. That's going to be back at some point next year. I'm not sure it's the most inviting place for a really good running back in the portal. I'm not sure he's going to look at that and just think, yeah, that's where I need to be. That's the best situation for me, because those guys are leaving. They're going to be leaving somewhere they were a starter. And so are they really going to look at Texas and say that's the situation for me? I think that's the uphill climb Texas has. Now, NIL can take care of a lot of those questions, but I think that would be the question at running back.
The thing that I would say, Jerry, the only thing that changes it, and this is how much of an extreme deal we're talking about here, if you got a guy like Keelan Robinson, and we know Keelan had connections to the staff, so that was different in and of itself. But if you got a guy who knows he's kind of a role player, there's specific ways to use him, and he's your primary return guy, that's how you're planning on using him. In other words, it's got to be a very, very specified role on how you use that guy. I still think whether you go receiver or look at a back, I think you've got to find somebody in the portal that's got punt return experience. I really worry about that, because other than DeAndre Moore, I don't know who you trust back there.
Or even kickoff return. Yeah, I mean, and that'll be interesting. My prediction for the portal at wide receiver, it will if they get a guy in the portal, which they want a guy, I think they're going to view him as a top 3 round pick, unless he's a multi-year guy. And I still think they might view him as a top 3 round pick. I think they're going to take somebody that they think is a dude. That's my thought at wide receiver. At tight end, it could be a really good player, right? That kind of fits in and helps the young guys, that kind of bridges the gap for the young guys. Mm-hmm. But I think at wide receiver, it's going to be a guy they feel like is a dude, a top 3 round pick level player.
Before we move on, Jerry, I need you to tell people about Gooder, please.
Yes, I can tell people about Gooder. I'll probably be wearing them later today, standing out in the sun by Moncrief. Stylish sunnies, starting at only $25 a pair, 1 year free warranty. I got to read it. 30-day free returns. I got to read that too. You can throw it in the trash. Lightweight and comfortable, 100% polarized, no slip, no bounce. From vibrant colors to sleek styles, there's a pair of Gooders for every personality. Designed for both everyday wear, and active individuals that love to run, hike, bike, and much, much more. As I've said before, if you're John Shire, need to kind of not be seen walking around Durham or not being made fun of at Chapel Hill, get your Gooders, man. They'll hide those eyes. Nobody will know who you are. When do you wear your Gooder sunnies? On a run, playing pickleball, on a hike, going to the beach, any of that good stuff. Watching football spring practice, watching football recruits go into Moncrief, watching basketball players roll into Moody, all of it. Wear your Gooders, sun's high. Also, a lot of dust in Austin right now. We're in the new practice facility. Another reason to have your Gooders on, because they're so affordable, you don't have to worry about losing or breaking them. You can have a pair for every single occasion. If you need to do a pair of sunnies, Gooder is giving On Texas football listeners free shipping. You can go to gooder.com/OnTexas, all caps, and use that code OnTexas for free shipping. 30-day money-back guarantee. Have to read it. 1,000% satisfaction. I made you read for you, Gooder. That is gooder.com. I think there's always sold out of the Texas brand for the chat. Right. If anybody's got them, let me know. But those are a big seller around Austin.
And I'm going to let everyone know one last time, if I can get this to cooperate with me, about BKCW. If your business had a frustrating insurance or employee benefit renewal, then look at BKCW. Most likely you didn't hear from your agent all year, and then right before it was time to renew, your agent delivered the bad news of a rate increase. When this happens, the agent is providing no value, and you're stuck in what we call the insurance trap. But BKCW takes you out of the insurance trap by providing you with actual risk management consulting, not just price quoting. Operating out of their headquarters in Austin, Texas, and owned by a UT grad, BKCW uses a 5-step process to identify your business's weak spots, design a plan, execute it, and monitor your situation throughout the year so you can lower your insurance costs and effectively manage your company's risk. BKCW has already helped some of the most well-known construction companies, restaurant groups, breweries, and nonprofits in Central Texas escape that insurance trap, and it all starts with their free risk assessment. Just go to bkcw.com or send an email, info@bkcw.com, to get started with a free risk assessment or claims audit and escape the insurance trap. All right, guys, we got some more here. By the way, those gooders are available around campus in some of the stores, but online they are sold out, FYI. Longhorn Frenzy with Super Chat. Blake, big weekend for baseball. Kentucky is a pesky team. Agreed. They tend to crowd the plate a ton, hit by pitches and walks. Agreed as well. What are your thoughts on the series? The series is worrisome. Talk me off the ledge. I'm with you a little bit. I, too, am worried. You know, they started off the year top 25 team. They are on a, I think a 4-game losing streak. They played Ole Miss somewhat close. A&M, they took 2 or 3 from. Of course, that's not saying much. They played Auburn very close. So I am with you on that. Maybe they're looking a little ahead, Longhorn Frenzy, to Tennessee next week because they have them after Texas. We can hope anyway. I was looking at the RPI predictor earlier, and they have Texas losing the first game tonight and then winning the next 2. So I'd be happy with that. I could take that. But no, I mean, it is a big weekend. Gentlemen, I do have an update, though. I talked to a source this morning close to the baseball program. We've had a lot of people asking about Adrian Rodriguez, and it sounds like he may play this weekend. Cautiously optimistic on him returning this weekend. It's not set in stone as of this morning, but don't be surprised if you see A-Rod out there tonight or at some point this weekend, which obviously would be a big boost.
By the way, I was just scrolling through social media. A&M had a big walk-off home run last night. Their bats are kind of waking up a little bit for them, it looks like. And
Yep.
no word on if they were all saying COB after or not. I don't know.
Yeah, there's. Thank you for that, Jerry. I do like the fact, Blake, that with these guys out, that Tommy Farmer settled into the lineup and feels like I'm not going to say you're starting to figure out like he's hitting that consistency where you know what you're going to get from him every night, but he's been better than expected. I think at the very least, Adrian Rodriguez will fill out that DH spot for you. And, it'll allow Borba to settle in at third base. The good thing is, I mean, Borba had kind of overtaken Rodriguez at least for the third base job anyway. And A-Rod had moved to DH. So it's kind of just plug him back into that DH spot and go. I really wish, Easton Winfield had really gotten going. Played better the last couple of games he was in the lineup. But, at the end of the day, you put Rodriguez's bat back in there. You're not quite cooking with grease at that point because you don't have Max Ballou, but it's a really big boost to get him back.
Definitely, 100% about that.
Mike, I think this question's for you guys. It's not for me.
So Jackson S., if Texas makes the College World Series, Women's College World Series, y'all come in Omaha. I think you asked this, I think it was you, Jackson, a few days ago. Maybe you didn't hear the answer. I will actually be in Fayetteville, of all places, that first week of the College World Series. My son is playing in a tournament up there. But may have to try to talk the wife into driving a little further north and sneaking in a game or two if possible. But yeah, that first week I am in Fayetteville. Jeff, I don't know about you making the trip.
Let me tell you, if I got a chance to go to Omaha for the College World Series, I'm there. That is a bucket list trip. Look, I never got to go to Rosenblatt. And so the old timers will tell me it doesn't quite feel the same, but the last time I was there in 22, you got to think of the fan bases that were there, right? It's Texas, it's A&M, OU, and Arkansas fans all in the same place at the same time. So there was debauchery in various parts of Omaha. But, yeah, man, I love the College World Series. If Texas makes it there, I would play it by ear. But more likely than not, I would be up there at some point.
Yeah, it's always a great time. It's
As far as
fun
the
no
Women's
matter.
College World Series, it's no disrespect to Mike White and the ladies, but I want to spend as little time in Oklahoma as possible.
I think all Longhorn fans can agree with that one for
I
sure.
wanted to mention something. When I was driving last night from Dallas down to the hotel I'm at now before I'm about to head to Austin, I had a long conversation with somebody pretty close to the Georgia program, and that person told me, "Don't underestimate how much talent Georgia lost off the last year's team." Just when thinking about Georgia this year, they are a talented team. I'm not saying they're not. They've recruited top 5 classes. We talk about it all the time with Texas, but I've mentioned it on the show multiple times when Georgia's brought up. But this person kind of reiterated it. They lost a lot of difference makers off their team last year, and they're not sure. And was great for bringing this up. This person who's really close to the program wasn't sure that they can quite replace all those guys next year, because it's at all levels of the defense. That guard, center guard, when they were healthy, those guys are really good players. All of them are going to be drafted. And Tate Ratledge may be a second rounder, and Wilson, the center, may be a third rounder. They tore up the combine athletically. And then the D linemen, I mean, they think Brinson's a big loss. Nazir, Stackhouse, Ingram Dawkins went. They thought he would come back, but he went pro. Along with Michael and Jalen Walker and Starks and Dan Jackson and Chaz Chambliss and Smile Mondon, who was their best cover linebacker.
Yeah.
This person said that's a lot. Like nine players may be drafted off their defense coming up in the NFL draft. And I don't think this person was very confident that they can quite replace them to the level they need to next season. Down the line, yeah, but next season may be a hit for them.
Gary, I'm glad you said that, because I'm working on a story. I'll have this posted at OTF at some point this morning. I was finishing it up before we got on the air, but I was looking at returning production. Bill Connolly at ESPN does a great job charting this stuff. He's got Texas at 103 in terms of returning production, number 103 nationally. And we talk a lot about what Texas lost and what they've got to replace. Let me give you some other teams in terms of returning production. Ohio State 101, Georgia 105, Oregon 109, Ole Miss 113. And another thing to think about, and Bill Connolly's got the numbers in his study to back it up. You're at a point in college football now where all the guys that had COVID eligibility, pretty much all those guys are gone now.
Yep.
So for the first time in a long time, college football has been an older sport the last few years.
Yep.
It's going to skew heavily younger. So if Texas is going to have one of these years, Jerry, where you've kind of got this roster transition, where you got some younger guys that are having to step up, this is probably the ideal year to do it, because you're definitely not alone in that category.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. Hey, one of our best basketball posters is going for the blowout over Ohio State August 30th. Yeah, so look, and I think there's levels to it too, Jeff, right? It's you're going to be younger. It's some of these teams, because, like you said, the COVID years ago, those players are gone. But then if you lost more of your irreplaceables, your playmakers, your difference makers on top of it, then you could actually have and I say it all the time, there's no excuse to be inexperienced. But when I say inexperienced, I mean like just a bunch of true freshmen playing everywhere, right? If Neto is not an inexperienced player, he's inexperienced in games, but he's 3 years in a college system. So to me, that's not really an inexperienced player. He will walk into a starting job knowing exactly his job at Texas, and had been practicing against NFL guys for 3 years. So that's not really what I'm talking about inexperience. I'm talking about, you look at a 2 deep and it takes you back 15 years to where there's so many that's littered with true freshmen and redshirt freshmen on a 2 deep. That's what I talk about more in experience. But I think Ohio State lost a hell of a lot too. 8-9 starters on defense off their team, and a number of guys on offense as well. And now they have a new quarterback. It doesn't look like it's going to be Julian Sam, by the way, which is interesting. But Georgia lost just on Texas' schedule, in the SEC, they lost a lot of guys that are very hard to replace. I mean, they lost a lot of guys that are hard to replace off that team.
Juju Juice brings up a really good point in the chat. So production loss and depth are different. Depth matters. Texas has it. This is why for years I've been talking about quality depth. To your point, Jerry, who do you have stepping into those roles?
Yeah.
Texas may not have fully proven commodities, but they've got guys they trust. Like, you couldn't feel better about moving on. Like, in a normal college football cycle, you move on from a 3-year starting quarterback and thinking, man, what are we going to do? I don't think anybody's freaking out about Arch Manning taking over the offense. I don't think anybody's freaking out about Neto replacing Hayden Connor. I don't think anybody's freaking out about Cole Hudson being the starting center. So this is what I'm talking about, quality depth. And the national championship caliber teams, Georgia's just at a point, Jerry, where they've had some attrition and, they've had some guys leave early. So they're just in kind of one of those cycles where they do have to reload a little bit. And Kirby hadn't had to do that in a while. Texas is at the point kind of where Georgia was a couple years ago where, we lost some starters, but the backups are guys that have waited their turn that we feel just as good about.
Yeah, no doubt. Totally. Josh Manning, this A&M has the most returning production in SEC. It doesn't mean it's a good thing. And by the way they hit the portal, they're trying to move some of those guys, some of that returning production out at some places too, which is, that to his point.
I remember Gary Patterson one year at Big 12 Media Days. TCU had a down year, and then they're coming back the next year, and they said, "Well, you got a bunch of you get 10 starters returning on offense and 9 on defense." He said, I hear that, but if you got a bunch of starters returning and you weren't very good, what does it matter? So that's a great point. I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah, Ike Aurelius says we're still young, 9-3. We'll see. I always start at 10-2 and go from there. Depending on how that first big non-conference game goes. So this person last night I talked to thought Georgia could lose 4 or 5 games next year.
And with that schedule, it wouldn't surprise me, Jerry.
Yeah.
They still got the hellacious schedule they had last year and missing a lot of pieces. I mean, you can replace maybe if Michael Williams left or if Jalen Walker left or if Smile Monda left. Now you got to replace all 3 of those guys. That's not easy. That's 3. I mean, that defense, as good as Ohio State's defense was, I thought man for man the Georgia defense was better.
Yeah. So, and people have made people have made comments. Kirby said a lot of guys get offended when they try to coach them. That's the hardest thing to do. And I say this about recruiting all the time is when you climb the mountaintop and you become the best, you win the national championship or become the best. And Todd Golden's about to deal with this in Florida a little bit, but it's not the same because it's not many high school recruits in basketball. But in football, those next signing classes of kids, they can be really, really talented, but they're coming in, kind of expecting it to happen. They weren't part of the, we're going to Georgia, man, we're going to go win national championships, right? Well, what's the process? And Nick Saban's the only guy that over extended period of time won at the highest level and kept it so process-oriented that he kept the entitlement out of his program. Not all of it. It's hard to do, but kept the entitlement piece out of his program as much as any coaches I've seen or heard about. And that's hard to do, especially now in the NIL day and age, because, your last couple of recruiting classes that have come into Georgia, and they're ranked high and they're really talented. They're going to have a bunch of NFL players. They're so talented. But if there's any more hints of, we just expect this to happen. We're ranked high. We're coming to Georgia. We're going to win national championships. Well, one, it's harder than ever to win a national championship because you're going to have to win 4 games in a playoff in a row to do it unless you get a bye, but that's only lasting another year probably. But then look, you have portal guys too coming in to compete with you. And if entitlement creeps in, it's really hard to sustain.
Ask Mac Brown how hard it is. Because that's where Texas was in the early part of the last decade. I mean, you had guys that would openly tell you, "Oh man, we're Texas." You're taking credit for things that Colt McCoy and Jordan Shipley and Lamar Houston and Brian Arakpo. You're taking credit for what those guys did. You guys haven't done it. You just don't realize it, or you don't want to realize it. So yeah, that's tough.
And that's why I've said Sark is in a really good spot at Texas. Is this number one class comes into Texas, and they didn't just watch Texas win a national championship. They don't come in with, oh yeah, we're going to do this again. They're coming into the program at a time where you're still trying to get over that final hurdle and get to the national championship game and win the national championship. That's a really good place for a coaching staff to be, because you're returning players and then your recruiting class coming in. Those guys are trying to get over that hurdle. And those are always great teams. And we said it last year, Texas was a great team for Sark and the staff to coach, because they got to the playoffs and they lost in a heartbreaking fashion. They felt like they left something on the out there on the field. And they're in the same place this year, by the way. But this group of kids coming in with them, they didn't just watch a national championship celebration. They watched a semifinal loss. And so now they can feel like they can be part of helping Texas take that next step. Those are always the best places to be for a coaching staff in sports.
There's a lot about this team, Jerry, the vibe this team gives off. And I'm writing it in that piece for OTF. Reminds me a lot of the 08 team, where you had guys that kind of were in the background. I think we forget, Colt McCoy going from 07 to 08. He's coming off a year where he was 22 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. Going into 08, the universe wasn't sold on Colt being a franchise quarterback. We can go revisionist history and say it was different, but it was what it was. And you had guys like Quan Cosby and Brian Arakpo and Roy Miller that had kind of waited their turn. And when they got a chance to sit at the head of the table, like a DJ Campbell and a Manny Muhammad are now, they took the ball and ran with it. And you had enough young, talented guys, Jerry, a Sam Acho, an Earl Thomas, and Aaron Williams, guys that were young and hungry that followed the lead. And you ended up having a team that was good enough and should have played for a national championship, won 27 of 27 games and a conference title over 2 years. This team reminds me a lot of that, and it goes back to something that we know the leaders at Arch and some of these guys have waited their turn. They've taken the ball and ran with it. But something Arch said about the freshmen yesterday, he said it twice. He said, these guys came in and they want to be good. They're following the lead. So that tells you got a freshman class. Not only are they talented, but they're willing to do what it takes. Like, these guys have been there and done it. I want to see how Arch Manning and Anthony Hill and these other guys do it, and I'm going to follow their lead.
All right, guys, before we get out of here, I need to read this super chat from Side of Ranch. Thank you for the super chat. We really appreciate it. It says, good morning, fellas. Thanks for always giving the real deal Burn Orange news. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Mr. Howe's A-plus mug that got wall shelf real estate, maybe showing off to Blake. I don't know. Jeff, the other day they were busting Bobby's chops because he forgot to send me a mug with all the OTF apparel, and I was drinking out of this, and that's this comment. But yes, I'm still waiting on that mug, Bobby.
Man, Blake, I got mine like week 2 on the job. So.
Hey, Blake, question.
Low down on totem pole.
Hey, somebody's asking when bases loaded drops today, because the game starts at 5:30 in Lexington.
Yeah, so we'll have it for you later today, probably 4:30 at the latest. So it'll give you, each episode's about 20 to 30 minutes long, so it'll be a good primer to listen to right before today's opening game of the 3-game series there in Lexington.
I wanted to say real quick before we got to get out of here, I got to hit the road. But thanks as always to everybody that tunes in on Texas football. We're about to hit 78,000 subscribers. It's really cool to be part of a community that's that big. I thought we would be, but it's still cool to think about how big this has become. And thank you all to you guys. If y'all want to be more in the conversation on TexasFootball.com, obviously come join in over there. Be like Joe Z. You can make fun of me all day, and we throw it back and forth, and we have a lot of fun with it. But thanks for all the continued support for On Texas Football. We really appreciate it. We'll have the Longhorn live stream. That'll be Rod. I think, Jeff, you're on with Rod this afternoon at 1. So I'll be out stalking recruiting as usual on these type of weekends. So I won't be on the live. I may do a little drop in for a few minutes, depending on what I see before that. But thanks for the continued support always. And thanks for continuing to tell your friends and fellow your fellow Texas fans about On Texas Football.
And I'll echo that, Jerry. I want to thank the community for letting me in, because I told Bobby this the other day, and I mentioned it over on the message board at On Texas Football. I'm having more fun right now than I've had in this market in a really long time. So it's good and it's fun, and the best is yet to come for OTF.
Yeah, all right. And as Jerry said, don't forget to check out ontexasfootball.com. Remember, we can't be live all the time, so head on over there. Use promo code OTFOG when you sign up if you haven't already. It'll save you a little money. You can lock in that annual subscription for just $49.95. But again, that's only using promo code OTFOG. Come be a part of the community over there, the ever-growing community. We would love to have you answer your questions that we can't get to here on Coffee and Football or any of the other live streams as well. And we will be back on Monday morning.
Hey, all you Instagram users, if you're on Instagram, make sure you follow the On Texas Basketball Instagram account. You're following football, make sure you follow On Texas Basketball.
Yeah, we posted a little minute clip last night of Austin Gooseby talking about his phone call with Sean Miller. We're going to have Dakari Spear doing the same thing today. Probably a couple other things this weekend. I'm going to talk to Bo Ogden when I get back up to Dallas for the AAU tournament. He's playing up there on Saturday a couple times. So, yeah, On Texas Basketball Instagram as well. Thank you, Jeff.
And we'll be back on Monday morning. Hope you all have a great weekend. And for Jerry Hamilton and Jeff Howe, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you.